So thank you very much for everyone who joined us today for this cross-cultural AI ethics and governance workshop. We're very grateful to have the third version of the workshop together with all the speakers and also the attendance for today. Today's event is co-organized by the Center for Long-Term AI for SDGs Cooperation Network, also the International Research Center for AI Ethics and Governance at Chinese Academy of Sciences, and the Libitum Center for the Future of Intelligence from University of Cambridge. So really glad to have you guys. So today's event is a joint event for the International Conference on AI Ethics and Sustainable Development, together with International AI Cooperation and Governance Forum, starting today. So if you would like to have more information about the speakers, you can go to our website to see the details. And join us for today. We have a very collective panelists and speakers worldwide, with the need from the US, with Eugenio from Brazil, and also David Leslie from UK, Tiwi originally from Malaysia and also UNESCO, and also Andrew from Russia, Michael from New Zealand, Arthur from Africa, Aidanit, and also Samuel from the United States, together with me. My name is Yizeng from China, and also with my co-organizer, Dr. Sean from Libitum Center of Future of Intelligence from University of Cambridge. So I would like to, I actually would like to review that actually this series of workshops start few years ago, getting back to 2019 when we were in Cambridge, that the Libitum Center for Future of Intelligence organized as a main organizer, organized the workshop as cross-cultural trust for AI ethics and governance. So we're very honored to be one of the co-organizers to join the workshop. And getting back to the pictures, I could see that that there are several speakers also from today joining the workshops 3 years ago, and also we'll be very glad to have all the speakers from last year, and also organized by me and Sean for this cross-cultural cooperation workshop. Last year was with Mark Bentley and Vincent Mueller, and also Emma Rockham from Africa, and also with Danit. I'm really glad to have Danit in most of my events, which I really like. So I'm gonna pass to Sean to have a few words to welcome you guys and kick the workshop start. Sean.
Thank you so much. It's an absolute privilege to be part of the third annual meeting on cross-cultural AI ethics and governance. And I don't know how you all feel, but I feel that the importance of this kind of exchange of perspective and ideas is more urgent than ever. We're in a time at the moment with unprecedented challenges. We're still dealing with the impacts of a pandemic. There's the potential beginnings of a global recession. In Europe, we have war. There are so many challenges that face us that are not limited to one nation or one region, but that cut across all our regions. And so in order to engage in any meaningful way with these challenges, we need to work together. At the same time, against the backdrop of all these challenges, we see progress in areas such as AI moving, if anything, faster than ever before. Advances in areas like large language models are having really huge impacts on everything from speech generation to text generation to video. And it seems increasingly likely that many areas of the workforce, many areas of scientific progress are going to be affected in huge ways by these advances. Of course, we can't really talk about economics and science without thinking about the values that underpin the kind of progress that we make and the governance challenges that these pose. And once again, these are not the kind of challenges that we are able to address solely by thinking within the boundaries of our particular regions. What we can do, however, is to learn from our own regions and share what works in our context with each other, and to figure out how we can best work together on the challenges that cross these boundaries. With that said, I'm so thrilled with the caliber of speaker who we have with us today, representing so many regions across the world and leading thinking, leading governance initiatives and leading scholarship across so many regions. And my huge thank you and congratulations to Yu Zheng for having brought together such an excellent set of speakers. And with that, I'm a lot more excited about hearing from our speakers than I am hearing my own voice. So I'm going to hand over to the first of our panelists. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sean, for being always with us and keep the topic starting from Cambridge and spread all over the world. I still remember that after the first workshop that me and Sean and many people joining the first workshop wrote a paper together called Overcoming the Cross-Cultural Trust Barriers for AI Ethics and Governance Cooperation, which I think we pointed out some of the important roadmap to make this happen, and we're very glad to have more people joining us for these 3 years. So I think for each of the years we're gonna focus on very different topics. I think getting back to last year, actually we're still in the process of forming consensus. And then to try to learn from each other. So we have fabulous speakers in previous years representing different geolocations. And I think what has changed a lot for this year is really that by the end of last year, when we have the global recommendation on ethics of AI as a first trying all over the world, where we as humanity can reach a consensus for the first time, to really bring the fundamental values and principles to the world with world ethics. So I think by that, I think that's a very important advancement from last year. But not only that, so here I list some of the very interesting tryings, and not all from this year, but many of them are from this year, and also like the EU AI Act, representing many countries in EU. The Barcelona AI Conference really getting back to several years ago, but there are consensus, especially for the Western society, especially at from the perspective of scholars. I'm really glad to see the report on AI African Insights, talking about the policies vision from Africa. And also joining these efforts is also with position paper from China on strengthening ethical governance of AI. To me, I think also there's something very interesting is the Japanese society proposal on AI ethical guidelines, which is very interesting because when we were talking about tools of AI, they also talk about AI as quasi members. We'll get back to this by many of our panelists and also speakers. We'll get back to many of these proposals and consensus. So I'm really glad to have you guys together for today. So today I would like to make, together with Sean, we would like to make the workshop more interactive compared to our previous versions with, I think with two of the speakers for longer talk. Well, for the rest, we'll focus on these interesting questions that we bring to the audience. I'll fit the speakers even for the longer version for these questions. So before we go to the more cross-cultural part, we would like to see the consensus, what we really have done so far as the world together. So we go to question number 1. That is a brief overview on the common values all of the world. So I'm really glad to have TVN joining us from UNESCO Beijing Office today. Of course, TV is not only working in Beijing for UNESCO Asia, but really getting back to his previous efforts in the UNESCO Secretary for Bioethics and AI Ethics in the headquarters in Paris, leading our work for UNESCO Global Recommendation. And also we were interacting with each other also in the occasion of World Health Organization when we developed the WHO guidance on ethics and governance for health, which is a domain-specific trying. But getting back to the global recommendation on ethics of AI, to me, my experience is really that it's a great opportunity to work with all the world-renowned scientists and the policymakers together for the human vision. So getting to you, T, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Yi, and thank you, Sean. Thank you, everyone. Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, wherever you might be. So bear with me for a moment while I get my slides in order. So today I'm just going to give a rather not detailed dive into the recommendation, but rather a brief overview of the UNESCO recommendation ethics recommendation on the ethics of artificial intelligence. Now, maybe one of the first questions that people might have in mind is why is UNESCO working on this? In fact, bioethics and ethics of science and technology at UNESCO goes all the way back to the 1970s. We were one of the first organizations that was at the forefront of promoting reflection on ethics of life sciences in the 70s. This was during the developments related to genetics and DNA. And we are now the lead UN agency for bioethics, ethics of science and technology, and more recently, ethics of artificial intelligence with the recommendation that was adopted. Now, UNESCO's mandate is to ensure that ethics is the guiding principles for scientific and technological progress. And in recent years, we have also been applying this mandate to such rapidly evolving fields such as genetic engineering, neurotechnologies, and AI. The organization actually has pioneered the elaboration and adoption of universal ethical standards for science, technology, and innovation through the following instruments. We have the Universal Declaration on the Human Genome and Human Rights from 1997, International Declaration on Human Genetic Data from 2003, the Universal Declaration on Bioethics and Human Rights in 2005, the Declaration on Ethical Principles in Relation to Climate Change in 2017, and the Recommendation on Science and Scientific Researchers in 2017 as well. So as Yi mentioned, at the end of 2021, the recommendation on the ethics of artificial intelligence was adopted by acclamation by 193 member states of UNESCO on the 23rd of November, 2021. So when adopted by acclamation, we say this is actually adopted by consensus without a vote after a very, very long process of consultation negotiations during probably one of the most challenging times that you could ever hope to do this process, which was at the beginning of the pandemic, where everything had to go online up until the end of 2021. Now, the recommendation actually is the first ever global framework on ethics of AI negotiated and agreed by 193 member states of UNESCO, and is the result of a comprehensive global, cross-cultural, and intergovernmental consultation process and consensus. Of course, it's not only intergovernmental in terms of consultation. The consultation also involved a wide variety of experts, civil society organizations, and the public. There was actually an online survey that was put out for people to provide their inputs on the draft recommendation that was prepared by a group of experts. And from that consultation, we received something like 50,000 comments or on specific parts of the recommendation. So the purpose of the recommendation is to deliver more effective rules and regulations to ensure the beneficial development of AI and control its downside risks. It asks member states to ensure more inclusive, diverse, and fair outcomes, to ensure the full enactment of the rule of law by enacting strong enforcement mechanisms and remedial actions, to make certain that human rights and fundamental freedoms are respected in the digital world as they are in the physical world. And it's also asking member states to improve their capacities to deal with AI technologies. The recommendation is one of the most extensive and detailed normative instruments produced by UNESCO, with over 140 paragraphs. This is the longest such document so far. And imagine trying to get the governments to sit around the table, government representatives to sit around the table to agree on 140 paragraphs. That took a lot of patience, a lot of discipline, a lot of long nights, and maybe even some drinking involved at certain points. But the length of the recommendation, it actually reflects what member states wanted to do, because they really wanted to do justice to the significance of this technology for our common future. It addresses the ethical implications of artificial intelligence and its applications. It is based on interconnected values and principles. The values that serve as the foundation of the ethical framework are respect, protection, and promotion of human dignity, human rights, and fundamental freedoms, environment and ecosystem flourishing, ensuring diversity and inclusiveness, and living in peaceful, just, and interconnected societies. Now, and from there, it translates to 10 principles that you see on the screen. The recommendation actually represents a comprehensive ethical framework that encompasses the full spectrum of human rights architecture, from the principle of human dignity to the issue of inclusivity, fairness, equality, and non-discrimination. And it does so by maintaining focus on all stages of the AI system lifecycle, from design to end of use. It's not only from design to implementation, but it's actually from design to end of use, envisioning that one day when you want to phase out certain AI applications, there are also principles what the recommendation is saying, that these principles should still be taken into consideration when you are phasing out AI applications. Now, the reason why it focuses on all stages, one of the reasons is that this is crucial because often bias and discrimination manifested downstream as experienced by the users is the product of structural inequalities and exclusion that creeps in upstream, such as the lack of diversity in the management or in the management of technical teams developing AI technologies. Critically, the recommendation is not meant to be a mere declaration of values and principles. Rather, as you can see from the slide, it is offering policy pathways to turn the principles into action, while each policy area contains actions with interesting implication for both the public and private sectors. The recommendation includes several action-oriented cross-sectoral policy chapters covering data policy, gender, development and international cooperation, environment and ecosystems, health and social well-being, communication and information, education and research, economy and labor, and culture. It also has two ethics-centric policy action areas. One is on the ethical impact assessment, in which is calling upon member states to introduce frameworks for impact assessments, such as ethical impact assessment, to identify and assess benefits, concerns, and risks of AI system, as well as appropriate risk prevention, mitigation, and monitoring measures, among other assurance mechanisms. The other policy area is ethical governance and stewardship, where it says that member states should ensure that AI governance mechanisms are inclusive, transparent, multidisciplinary, multilateral, and this includes the possibility of mitigation and redress of harm across borders and multi-stakeholder. And in particular, governance should include aspects of anticipation and effective protection, monitoring of impact, enforcement, and redress. One of the things that I would like to bring up is that the recommendation, as I mentioned, the recommendation was a product of cross-cultural negotiations and consultation. Maybe one of the best ways to also illustrate how relevant the provisions of the recommendation is to do a quick, very preliminary, not in-depth analysis of convergences with Chinese position paper on strengthening ethical convergence, ethical governance of AI that was released on the 17th of November, 2022. As you can see, in this position paper that was only released 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, it says that governments should give priority to ethics, establish and improve rules, norms, and accountability mechanisms for AI ethics, clarify responsibilities and power boundaries of AI-related entities, fully respect and protect the legitimate rights and interests of all groups, and respond to relevant ethical concerns at home and abroad in a timely manner. At a first glance, the applicable provisions in the recommendation actually covers all the values and principles and all the policy areas. But if you really want to, I want to point out some highlights from the policy area of ethical governance and stewardship, where it is, as I mentioned earlier, about it actually calls for governance mechanisms that are inclusive, transparent, multidisciplinary, multilateral. But it also says that public entities, private sector companies, and civil society organizations should involve different stakeholders in their AI governance, and they consider adding the role of an independent AI ethics officer or some other mechanism to oversee ethical impact assessment, auditing, and continuous monitoring efforts, and ensure ethical guidance of AI systems. I'm just going to go maybe in some detail for the first few slides, and then because the position paper has quite a lot of provisions, after that I'll just be skimming through very quickly. One of the aspects of this position paper states that governments should place emphasis on research on fundamental theoretical issues regarding AI ethics and laws, on AI ethical norms, laws, regulations, policies, formulate guidelines on AI ethics, establish review and regulation mechanisms for ethics in science and technology, and strengthen evaluation and management capacity for AI security. Again, all values and principles and all policy areas are actually relevant in this, of the recommendation is actually relevant to this particular clause. But specifically, if we look at some of the highlights in the policy area of development and international cooperation, the recommendation actually calls for the promotion of AI ethics research by engaging international organizations and research institutions, as well as transnational corporations that can be a basis for the ethical use of AI system by public and private entities, including research into the applicability of specific ethical frameworks in specific cultures and contexts. In the policy area of education and research, it actually calls for the promotion and support of AI ethics research, including, for example, through investing in such research or by creating incentives for the public and private sectors to invest in this area, with a view to promote international law and the value and principles set forth in the recommendation. Again, the position paper calls for governments to bear in mind worst-case scenarios, enhance risk awareness, identify potential ethical risks, and gradually establish an effective early warning mechanism, agile governance, and a tiered and categorized management, continuously improve risk management, control, and settlement capacity. Once again, all values and principles and all policy areas are applicable in this case. But specifically under the policy area of ethical impact assessment, as I mentioned before, the introduced frameworks for impact assessments, but also it also calls for adoption of a regulatory framework that sets out a procedure, particularly for public authorities, to carry out ethical impact assessments on AI systems to predict consequences, mitigate risks, avoid harmful consequences, facilitate citizen participation, and address societal challenges. In the area of R&D, the position paper actually calls for entities to strengthen their self-discipline or voluntarily incorporate ethics into the whole process of AI R&D, avoid premature use of technologies that may cause serious consequences, and ensure that AI is always under the control of humans. Some highlights here is the principle of proportionality and do no harm that is in the recommendation, where it says that the choice to use AI system and which AI method to use should be justified. AI method chosen should be appropriate and proportional to achieve a given legitimate aim. AI method chosen should not infringe upon the foundational values captured in this document, and AI method should be appropriate to the context and should be based on rigorous scientific foundations. Specifically, it does say in scenarios where decisions are understood to have an impact that is irreversible or difficult to reverse, or may involve life and death decisions, final human determination should apply. And under the principle of human oversight and determination, it says that we need to really ensure that it is always possible to attribute ethical and legal responsibility for any stage of the life cycle of AI systems, as well as in cases of remedy related to AI systems, to physical persons or to existing legal entities. And human oversight refers thus not only to individual human oversight, but to inclusive public oversight as appropriate. The other aspects of the research and development, of course, you'll see on the screen here. I'm not going to read through the whole thing, but here we're talking about algorithm security. We're talking about the position paper is talking about better data quality, data security regulations, ethics review of data collection, algorithm development. Now, the applicable provisions in the recommendation, of course, are the principles on safety and security, fairness and non-discrimination, transparency and explainability, and the policy areas, the ethical governance and stewardship, as well as there's the specific policy area on data policy. And again, under utilization of the position paper, the government it says that governments should prohibit using AI technologies and relevant application which run counter to laws, regulations, ethics, strengthen quality monitoring and evaluation on the use of AI products. Again, this falls under ethical impact assessment, ethical governance, and stewardship, which actually has a specific redress mechanism mentioned, which is pretty much aligned with the China's position paper that mentioned emergency mechanisms and compensation measures. the position paper also called upon governments to safeguard individual privacy and data security, which then, of course, the applicable provisions in the recommendation is the principles of right to privacy and data protection, safety and security, and the policy area of data policy. I apologize to the interpreters if I'm going too fast, actually. Again, here with the position paper, it talks about the need to strengthen pre-use study and evaluations of AI products and services, institutionalized training on AI ethics, public education on AI ethics. And here, the provisions actually have a specific principle on awareness and literacy, as well as very specific policy areas that talks about in development and international cooperation, as well in education and research, where AI ethics skills, curricula, and education is specifically mentioned for promotion. Now, one of the things that I noticed from China's position paper is that towards the end of it, it calls on the international community to reach international agreement on the issue of AI ethics. I would put forward that the recommendation actually is already quite a strong basis of that international agreement. It went through quite, it's not, I would not say that it is perfect or complete, but the recommendation actually has a review mechanism that is built into it within the UNESCO framework, in which member states are asked to report back on their implementation progress every 2 years, every 4 years. So this actually provides us a feedback loop into a broader discussion on when we need to adjust provisions in the recommendations and what needs to be added or what needs to be modified, depending on how AI technologies are developing in the coming years. We are also actually in the midst of having a comprehensive implementation program. We are actually working on this right now. And of course, the main elements of this implementation strategy includes the elaboration of the capacity building and monitoring tools, which is the readiness assessment methodology and ethical impact assessment. We're working on developing an AI Experts Without Borders, a roster of experts to be managed by UNESCO for deployment in beneficiary countries for targeted capacity building interventions. Women for Ethical AI Network to spearhead the implementation and deployment of the recommendation from gender perspective. The Global Forum on Ethics of AI as an annual high-level flagship event, and an observatory of AI ethics to gather state-of-the-art analysis around the world on ethical AI. I'm now actually going to touch very quickly on the progress in the development of the tools, on the two things on readiness assessment, methodology, and ethical impact assessment. Just to mention quickly, a high-level expert group was already put together on the implementation of the recommendation, which was established in March 2022, and it has convened in plenary twice. It's holding periodic meetings of 5 subgroups devoted to specific dimensions to develop readiness indicators, which covers legal, regulatory, societal and cultural, economic, scientific, and educational, tech, and or infrastructural. We're mapping of existing assessment tools for AI to draw inspiration and identify gaps. Ongoing work to decode the provisions of the recommendation to translate them into questions to be included in the ethical impact assessment. And a survey in support of tool development was sent out to member states, with almost 40 countries providing their input so far, but we are actually soliciting for more. And tools will be completed by the end of 2022, with piloting starting in 2023. That's what we anticipate. One other thing to point out is that in terms of the Global Forum on the Ethics of AI, the inaugural forum is actually planned jointly with the Czech presidency of the Council of the EU. It's going to take place on the 13th of December, which is next week in Prague, in both in presential and online format. I've included the website of the registration and more the website where you can register for the forum and get more information about it. And several countries have expressed their interest in hosting the Global Forum in the upcoming years. This year, as the inaugural one, it's not going to be as large as what we are planning. This is just to get the ball rolling. The theme is ensuring inclusion in the AI world. Other implementation actions thus far, basically, we've been working with several countries. The Mexico, Colombia, and Morocco are establishing national steering committee for the implementation of the recommendation. We're also working on piloting capacity building tools in member states in Africa and SIDS. This is with financial support from Japan. We're collaborating with the European Commission to advance support for developing countries and also to support the implementation for the European countries. Other related events on the recommendation has been held in several countries, Romania, Colombia, South Africa, Netherlands, Brazil. We've also been working on regional cooperation networking fora what has taken place in Southern Africa, Latin America, and the Caribbean. And we're also engaging with private sector partners. Private sector companies are actually actively involved in the expert group supporting the development of the tools. But we have also, UNESCO has also signed an agreement with Telefonica International to establish an advisory council of the private sector for the implementation of the recommendation. I apologize for taking too much time, so that's it from me.
Thank you so much, T. I know T may have some other issues to deal with. I see T as a scholar, not only as the program specialist from UNESCO. So T was originally from Malaysia. So T, can I ask a quick question, and also if you can, a quick answer, is that what can we add from this global recommendation? Would you like to have some, some first ideas, maybe from the culture of Malaysia and related culture, that how, what could be an additional contribution based on these world consensus?
I think that in terms of adding, well, I have to say that in the process of the elaboration of the recommendation, we have gone through quite an extensive discussion of what were the values, what were the principles, and trying to draw together the sources from different documents and different efforts globally. So for the moment, I think it's quite comprehensive, but again, as the technology progresses, we need to keep aware of what are the values and principles that we really need to look at. In the recommendation currently, there's a huge emphasis on environment. This was one of the innovation of this recommendation. The huge emphasis on environmental sustainability, on the fact that AI needs to actually contribute to environmental sustainability and the fight against climate change and not actually aggravate it. But as we move forward, I think there's going to be more things that come up that we will be looking at. What the challenge now that I see is not necessarily tweaking the principles and tweaking the values. Those are opportunities, but the challenge now is translating those principles and values into the policy actions and figuring out how to practically create mechanisms for the implementation that will be in line. So, in terms of what to add, I think that the key thing is maybe understanding, trying to have a better understanding of what the real challenges are, or what are the emerging challenges, and how do we then relate to whether we need to go back to the recommendation to tweak some of the content that has been agreed upon, which will require an intergovernmental process, of course, to bring that forward. So if there's a new value, if there's a new principle, it needs to reach the discourse and the discussion about this needs to reach across the board, so that there's common understanding, common consensus, that when you get to the intergovernmental level, there is already a clear a clear knowledge of what the challenges, what these new challenges are.
Thank you so much, T. But I will follow up with emails asking about Malaysia culture, actually, and then to learn from it. Thank you so much for your contribution for today.